Yeah, we'll start when everybody's ready. Good afternoon and welcome to today's planning meeting. My name is Councillor David Connor and I'm Chairman of the Planning Committee here at Fenland. I'd now like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and those press in attendance and those who are watching the live stream this meeting via the YouTube. Whilst this meeting is being held publicly in a COVID-19 secure manner, it is also being streamed via YouTube. Minutes of the meeting will be produced in the usual way and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on YouTube until such times that the minutes are produced. Please be aware that the only audio from the microphones will be captured on the live stream. Therefore, those invited to speak need to ensure their microphones are on when speaking and as close to the members as possible. To enable the meeting to run in an orderly manner, can I ask all present to keep their microphones off, except when invited to speak. And also please ensure that the microphones is turned off when you have finished speaking. I would also ask that everyone ensures their mobile phones are on silent or turned off for the duration of the meeting. Please be aware of the cameras will on all times, again during the meeting. With regard to the meeting, I must ask members of the public to refrain from interrupting. The only members of the public allowed to speak are those who are registered. Anyone who speaks must do so in a respectful and polite manner. It is right there is meaningful discussion about the merits of the applications, but I will not allow inappropriate language or personal attacks on councillors and their beliefs, on members of the public or on officers' professional advice. So thank you for that. We'll now go to agenda item number 1, and I'd like to ask member services if we've got any apologies for absence. Over to you, Jo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. Apologies received today from Councillor Cornwall, Councillor Mrs Davis and Councillor Spalding. Just like to make members aware that Councillor Miss Scanlon is present at today's meeting, substituting for Councillor Spalding. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you once again for substituting Councillor Miss Scanlon. It's getting a regular thing, that is. So agenda item number 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes of the previous meeting of the 9th of March 2022. Do I have a proposer to approve the minutes? Councillor French? Have I got a seconder? Councillor Benny? All those in favour of I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So now we'll quickly go to 3. Now we'll go agenda item number 3, which is urgent items. Again, there are none. So agenda item number 4 is declarations of interest. Members' services will now to go to each councillor in turn. And can you please state if you have anything to declare in relation to any of the agenda items? Thank you very much. So over to you, Jo. Thank you.
Councillor Benny.
Yeah, on item 5, that came before Chatteris Town Council. I can't remember if I was there or not that evening, but I certainly took no part in the voting or discussion relating to that item, and there's nothing else on here that I've got anything to declare for. Thank you.
Councillor Connor.
Yes, thank you, Jo. Quite a lengthy one, this. Following legal advice, I wish it to be placed on record that Councillor Laws is the portfolio holder for planning, neighbourhood planning. A relative of her late partners is the applicant for agenda item number 10, which is being considered at today's planning committee. Councillor Laws has taken no part in the consideration of this planning application by the District Council. She is not a member of the Council's planning committee and is not present at today's meeting. I would wish to add that I have no disclosure of pecuniary interest in relation to this application, but I wish it to be placed on record that I clearly know Councillor Mrs Laws. I have also met the applicant once for this plan application some 2 to 3 years ago, although it was no more than being introduced when we were both attending a function by some other 50 other people. Whilst I'm not a member of Whittlesey Town Council, I sometimes do attend meetings of the full council, but never the Town Council's planning subcommittee, and I've not participated in the consideration by the Town Council on this application whatsoever. I confirm that I've not spoken or otherwise dealt with the applicant or Councillor Laws regarding this planning application. I consider myself to be open-minded as to the application and propose to consider the application on its merits and decide, and if so, how to cast any vote after hearing the debate upon this application. And also, I'll carry on, please. Also on application number 6, I know the agent, Mr. Gowler, through his Doddington Parish Council days. I always say that, I know, but I do not socialise with him on a personal basis. I also know Mr. Cuttridge. I have bought plants from his firm in Doddington, namely Mega Plants, and also regarding Doddington, Hospital Road, Doddington, when improvements are needed to that road. I do not socialise with the applicant again whatsoever. So thank you for that, Joe.
Councillor Mrs. French.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, I'm a member of March Town Council, but take no part in any planning applications at town level. I think now that the chairman has mentioned council law, we all know councillor laws. I have known her since 1999, I believe, but certainly never discussed planning applications with her at all. And yes, I've bought some plants from Mega Plants too, but I don't know the gentleman personally. I don't really think that is an interest.
Thank you. Councillor Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, again, my family and myself have used Mega Plants, but again, I don't believe that has any problem. And on FYR 220012F, the applicant is known to the business that I'm the director of, so therefore I'll take no part in that.
Councillor Mrs. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I'm a member of Whittlesey Town Council. I do sit on their planning committee, but agenda item number 10, when that was discussed at the Town Council, I took no part in it. I did declare an interest at that point. I would just like to say I do know the applicant, but also I'm a bit concerned about the description on the application, because 127 White Road is also owned by one of my family members, and this isn't where the application is.
Councillor Mrs. Mayor, can you just confirm whether you're going to take part in that item, please?
No, I won't take part in discussion or voting anything at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, I attend Chatter's Town Council, but take no part in the planning applications.
Councillor Purser.
Yes, I'm a member of March Town Council, but I take no part in any of the planning applications.
Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chairman Joe. Nothing to declare. Thank you.
Councillor Topgood.
Again, nothing to declare.
Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you very much. I declare on agenda item 10, I am the chairman of Whittlesey Town Council Planning Committee and took part in the discussions when this came before us. And I can confirm what the chairman has said, that councillor laws at no time had any discussions with any of the members of the Town Council Planning Committee during the debate on this item. But I will not be voting or taking part in the discussion on the agenda item 10.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you, councillors. So now we'll go to the main part of the meeting, the planning applications. To remind members, a proposal to grant or refuse an application should only be made when invited to do so. And if going against officer recommendation, the proposal should be accompanied by the planning reasons for doing so. So now, further ado, I'll hand over to David Rowan. He's the development manager here at Fenland to present agenda item F/YR21/1346F, agenda item number 5. So David, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is a full planning application for change of use of land to domestic and direct a 2-storey self-contained residential annex involving the demolition of existing building. The location is Bromsgrove House, Honeysome Road in Chatteris. The application site is shown in red on the location plan and the aerial photo. You can see the site sits to the west of the A141 and is accessed down to the Honeysome Road, so through the industrial estate. Immediately in front of the site is the Fenton Load Drain running north-south, and to the north and west of the site is agricultural land. You see the site is very much at the edge of the built form of Chatteris and is also within flood zone 3. The existing plan is the left-hand image here. The proposed plan is the right-hand image. The application proposes the demolition of the outbuilding adjacent to the northern boundary and the replacement of this with what the application describes as an annex. This is shown in black on the proposed plan. The application also proposes the creation of an area of curtilage to serve that building, and that is shown in green on the proposed plan. Given the application proposes a separate curtilage and the scale of the annex relative to the main dwelling and the level of accommodation provided by this, this is considered to be tantamount to a new dwelling being created and should be considered by the committee as such. The building to be demolished is shown on the screen. As you see, sort of a single story outbuilding, and the proposed building is now shown. Unfortunately, it's probably not coming up very clearly, but the image on the right middle does actually show the outline of the existing building to demonstrate the increase in height that's proposed. As you can see, it's a two-story building that's proposed with, in effect, self-contained accommodation. The upper left photo shows the existing bungalow, so Bromsgrove House. On the sort of the left-hand side of that image, the access to the site is in the middle, which would serve both Bromsgrove House and the proposed development. And then to the right-hand side of the access drive there is the building to be demolished. The upper right image here just shows the building to be demolished in a little bit more depth. And then the lower left image shows the current nature of the land to sort of become that curtilage that I referred to earlier. The lower right view is an image across Fenton Road to the application site, so you can see the bungalow just on the sort of right-hand side, the left-hand side of that image. In summary, the application is submitted as an annex to the main dwelling to provide accommodation for the family of the daughter of the occupants of that property. However, given the nature and scale of the proposal, this is considered to represent a new dwelling. The residential development fronts Honeysome Road, and the application is considered to constitute a backland development out of character with that existing prevailing pattern. The site is within flood zone 3, and policy at both local and national level seeks to steer development to the areas at lowest risk of flooding. There are numerous sites within Chatteris which will fall in flood zones 1 and 2, and as such the site is considered to be sequentially unacceptable. The recommendation is therefore to refuse planning permission as set out in the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, David. We have one speaker on this application. I would now like to invite Matthew Hall, of course, he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. When you're seated and ready to go, you have 5 minutes, Mr. Hall. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on this application this afternoon. As members will have seen from the officer's report, there are no objections to this application. The applicant for this proposal runs the Willows Day Nursery in Station Road, Chatteris. At present on site are the applicant's parents, the applicant, her partner, and 3 children. The current living conditions are split between the existing dwelling and a caravan which the applicant has been living in since 2012. The annex will allow the family to stay on site within the same curtilage together. The existing building on site, which we've seen photos of, has suffered from 3 break-ins with loss of goods. The annex, as David has shown on the photos, has been positioned in this location as the existing brick storage building of 144 square metres is to be demolished. The annex plan area is less than that at 130 square metres. The reason this proposal is 1.5 storey is on discussing the proposal with the Environment Agency, they requested bedrooms to be set at first floor level together with raising of the ground floor level above the ground, which they consider this mitigation to be sufficient. Could we have the site plan or an ordnance survey on the screen, please, we had earlier? Thank you. Great, thank you. You can obviously see our site, as David highlighted, where the annex is. Sorry. So, as David highlighted, where the annex is where the green area is and where the annex is shown in black. Directly to the south of this site is a place called Orchard House, which, as you can see, there's two buildings there. The building to the north of Orchard House, directly next to this site, was approved for an annex in 2019 by this council. And as you can see, that building is detached, just like this proposal. That annex is in flood zone 3, just like this proposal, has the same facilities on the drawing in terms of lounge, kitchen, dining area, bathroom, all at ground floor level in a high flood zone. From what we understand, there was no consultation with the Environment Agency, and the bedrooms are at ground floor level, and it's detached from the main building, just like this proposal, which is next door. Also, that building has an external staircase leading to a first floor area that's shown as a storage area. Members will also remember in February's planning committee, an annex was approved by councillors at Kerf Terrace, Doddington Road, Chatteris, which was 1.5 storey, was also 3 bedrooms, had the same facilities as this proposal. That was recommended for refusal and was overturned by members, which we hope this application will be as well. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that, Mr. Hall. Now I'd like to invite members to put questions or even clarifications to Mr. Hall. If you'd like to ask a question, please can you raise your hand? So questions to Mr. Hall, members, please, if you have any. No, I think you got away with that really lightly, thank you. So members, questions to or clarifications to officers if you've got any. So no, I can't see anything. No hands up at all. Nobody hiding. No, thank you very much for that. So with that, I'd now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So we're in debate, guys. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, I know this site well. I've lived in Chatteris all my life, and I know this area. I mean, the photographs that were shown on the screen of the open countryside that this is set in is very picturesque. But if you turn 180 degrees, you've got SS Motor Fuels in front of that. You've got CNG coaches which are to the side of that. This really isn't open countryside. This is just to what would have been fen cottages years ago, or fen dwellings that people have got. And I see that we've got the next door house. I've been and looked at this, and the next door house has got exactly an annex, which is what we're looking at here. The footprint is not extending. The footprint is slightly smaller than the existing building that's coming down. And I look at this. This is a family. I don't know the family, but they're a family, obviously, from what Mr. Hall said. And I've spent the last 3 months intensively looking after my father. And I know that when you've got old people and old family members, the best care they'll ever have is family. And I think that there should be more annexes, because old people would be much better looked after if they had family members look after them. And that may not be at the point now. I don't know how old these people are, but at some point these people will need looking after, probably the older generation. And I think it's very commendable when family take family members in such close proximity to look after and work together. It helps with childcare, it helps with people as they get older. And I think the annex is an extremely good way of looking after people. I don't see that this is in any way bad land usage. The fact that it's portrayed on the screen as open countryside, it most certainly is not. We've got quite a big business in CNG coaches that runs along the same piece of road. There are only 2 houses, or there's 3 if you include the office, or it was a house that's now CNG coaches office. And there are these two dwellings at the bottom of this road. It is on the outskirts of the town. I can't think of any brownfield sites that Chatteris have got left. So where do we start building if we want the town to grow? If we don't build on the outskirts of the town, it is going to come. And this is to me, a very sensible proposal for a family to live in. And I will be supporting this application this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Benny, for that. Councillor French.
Thank you. Mr. Hall said that the family's living in a caravan. They have been since 2012, 10 years. I mean, I did go down there on site and noticed the one next to it. It actually looks very nice. To bring a family up in a caravan, unless you're a traveller, must be very difficult for them. And obviously, the measurements reducing from the building that's already there, which I believe is an eyesore, but that's my personal view. By removing that and reducing the size down from 144 to 130 metres, would fit nicely on the site. And I will be supporting this application.
Yep, thank you very much, Councillor French. Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think the key issue for me is whether it's an annex or whether it's a standalone property. I've always regarded an annex as something for someone's parents, or that may not be the true definition of an annex, but that's usually what comes in front of us. So if we can decide that it is definitely an annex, which I'm at the minute on sitting on the fence, then then I think possibly I could vote in favour of it. But if it's a standalone dwelling, which at the minute it looks more like a standalone dwelling to me than an annex, I think then I would be more reluctant to vote in favour of it. But I'll listen to see what other people have got to say, and I'll make my mind up subsequently. Thank you, Chair.
Perhaps that's a question you could ask to officers after we've finished the debate, Councillor Sutton. Anybody else at all? Councillor Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, I actually agree with what Councillor Sutton has just said. I looked at this and there's no way I can see this as an annex to the dwelling that's already there. To me, it's a separate dwelling, and that's how it should have been submitted, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mayor. Anybody else? We're in debate. Councillor Benny.
Yeah. Whether we determine it as an annex or a separate dwelling, it is in front of us, before us, as an annex. And also, we've got people living in a caravan in flood zone 3. Now, we overturned an officer's decision in Guy Hearn some months ago for building a house because it was considered unsafe to have people living in a caravan in flood zone 3. And with the mitigation measures for flood risk on this, that will put the floor levels up, and it's got bungalow or bedrooms upstairs, which will make it safer for those children to live in. And for what is in front of me, I've had no evidence to say that it is a separate dwelling. It looks from the plan and the annex that is next door certainly looks like an annex. I can't say for definite whether it is or not, but I would certainly look more favourably as an annex. It may or may not be, but it's presented to me today as an annex. So that is what I will take it at, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you're quite right. We have to go on what it says on the application. It is an annex, and that's perhaps where I rest my case. No, we finished. Oh, sorry, Councillor Miss Canlon. Yeah.
Thank you. I agree with the comments about this has the appearance and the definition of a separate dwelling. It may be currently under an application as an annex, but what's to stop that condition changing at some time in the future and being sold off as a separate premises, which is quite likely. Like Councillor Sutton and Councillor Mayor, I'm not convinced it's an annex. I'm convinced it's a separate dwelling that can be used as an annex, but at some time in the future can be sold off as a separate dwelling. So I'm a little bit undecided on this one.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ms Canlon. I'll take Councillor Marks and Councillor Murphy. Thank you.
Thank you. I live on Charmont Drive. Basically, we moved their work, or they originally were workplace homes. They then have been numerous properties have been changed to annexes or having young people or whatever. So the description has been changed. Quite honestly, we need homes for young people. It's their own family. They're probably struggling to get on the property ladder anyway, and this gives them a solution to a problem and keeps them within their own property.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Councillor Murphy, it's your turn, sir. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm also thinking the other way. It's not an annex. It is a building outside, and outside the building area as well. It's, I mean, somewhere it says here, it's, well, for a start, it's flood zone 3. It doesn't fit the sequential test either. That hasn't been met. It's away down an unadopted road. It's at the bottom there. Somebody says here that it's so the person lives next to where she's working. But unfortunately, it's, I say, down this unadopted road, across a main road, up into the town, another about half mile into the town. So it's nowhere near a place to be lived in, I don't think, at all. There's plenty of places in Chandler's where you can have houses built, and I think the officers have got this one totally right.
Yep, thank you very much, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Benny once more. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a year or so ago we approved Wombe Farm, and the side of Wombe Farm that comes out onto the bypass is equally the other side of the bypass, and there is a footpath that connects Chatteris from this development back into the town. So is this any worse, or is this any better or worse connected to the town than the site we approved at Wombe Farm, which comes out onto the bypass that will? So you know, I see that it's the same road. It's the same road, same stretch of road. Just one's one end and one's the other. And we approved Wombe Farm. They've started work on that. So there are houses being built on the opposite side of the bypass. And you know, this is just another one in a different area.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Benny, for that. So we're still in debate. Anybody else? Can't see any more hands up. So thank you for that. Good lively debate once again. So now we'll bring officers. Any members on the officer comments? Have any members got any comments at all, officers, to members? Yeah.
I think to sort of pick up on issues around, is it an annex, is it a dwelling? The application has been submitted as an annex, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's effectively has to be considered as an annex. To a degree, we have to look at what the application actually proposes as the development, and as set out in the officer report, it's considered that this development has all the sort of hallmarks, effectively being a separate dwelling, and should be considered as such. And that is effectively certainly the gist of the reasons for refusal that are in front of you. Proposed reason for refusal number 1, resulting in the construction of a self-contained residential unit, separate curtilage of a form and character not in keeping. Proposed reason number 2, effectively it's a standalone dwelling and therefore needs to be considered in terms of the sequential test and flood risk. Mr. Hall's made reference to the annex that's been permitted to the south at Orchard House. Just to read members the description of that application, which was for the erection of a detached garage with garden office and conversion of existing detached garage / store to 1-bed annex with store above to include installation of an external staircase. So what we got at Orchard House was effectively the creation of a 1-bed annex, the kind of scale of accommodation that one would normally expect to see as an annex, as opposed to a self-contained 3-bed house, which is what the application proposes here. I would also just draw members' attention to the fact that that application was almost entirely within the existing curtilage. of that property, whereas here there's actually being a separate curtilage created. So I think there are distinct differences. One at Orchard House certainly seems to be on the face of it an annex, whereas the application that's in front of members today is seemingly a self-contained 3-bed dwelling. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor French, you want to come in very quickly, please?
Yes, thank you. Well, I did mention it earlier. The caravan has been there and the family's been living in this caravan since 2012, 10 years ago. Has that caravan got planning permission to be there?
Through you, Chairman, I'm not aware that there's a separate planning application for that. It may well be that it was cited there sort of within the existing domestic curtilage, may not need planning permission, albeit from what we've heard from Mr. Hall today, given that it sounds as though it's perhaps being occupied as an independent living unit, that's maybe something that the enforcement team could be looking into.
Well, I think after 10 years, I don't think it's enforceable. I think it's a certificate of lawful use.
That's for another day, Councillor French. Now, you finish your summing up. Now, I'd like to invite members to make a proposal on the application. If you'd like to do so, please raise your hand.
Could I just ask the legal officer for her views on the determination of what is an annex and what isn't? Because I'm still.
So in reality, whether something would be considered an annex or a separate dwelling house would essentially be a matter of fact and degree at law. So it would be a question of the particular situation that we're facing. And, you know, David has set out the position that the officers have come to in terms of that by looking at the detail of the application. And I don't think that we can give a completely clear definitive answer for you on that further than what David has already said. It's about what can be seen on the application and a matter of fact and degree. I'm sorry, I can't be more certain for you.
Well, yeah. Does that sort of half clarify your position, Councillor Sutton?
Not really. But as Councillor Benny said, we can only make a decision based on what's in front of us, and perhaps, I don't know, perhaps we have to give the applicant the benefit of any doubt that we have, given that they're already living on site in a caravan. Or I have to say, when I went down, it didn't look like it was used. In terms of planning permission, so long as that is ancillary to the house, they wouldn't need planning permission, as long as it wasn't, you know, had its own services. So I'm still a bit undecided, really, but we'll have to make my mind up, obviously. But we'll just see what comes forward.
If I could just hop in again, I think sort of on the basis of the application that we've seen and the plan, it does look to us to be more like a separate dwelling than an annex, albeit, as I say, that it is a matter of fact and degree. Thank you.
Right. Did you want to speak, Councillor Mayor? Okay, Doug. Well, I was going to come in there. As Councillor Sutton said, sometimes they have been there 12 years, as Councillor French indicated there. So, for 10 years or whatever. Councillor Sutton says, sometimes you just do have to give people the benefit of the doubt and hope they're going to do the right thing. And it does say an annex on the application. So that is really where we need to be on this. We can't, it's in front of us. We have to make a decision on an annex. That's to my mind. If I can throw any steer to members on that one. So please. No. So right. So now I'd like to invite members to make a proposal on the application. If you'd like to do so, please raise your hands. Councillor Mayor.
Yes, I would like to propose that we go with the officer's recommendation. I think they've got it absolutely right. Thank you.
So we've got a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application. It's proposed by Councillor Mayor, seconded by Councillor Mayor, Ms Scanlon. Now we'll go to the vote. So all on that proposal, please, whether you support it or not. 3, all those against? Have we got any? Joe, you've got these?
6, I can't see Councillor Sutton.
So we've got, and Councillor, could we put it for the record, Councillor Sutton is going to abstain on that. So it looks to me that has failed, that proposal. So we're looking for a new one. So Councillor Benny?
Yeah, okay. Since I've said quite a bit on it, I think it's fair I put the proposal forward. In that case, I propose we go against officer's recommendation and approve this one. And you'll want reasons for this.
I knew you'd have your book ready, Councillor Benny, to go against that. That's why I said that's why I didn't say we need reasons, because I saw you were going to go for it.
Yeah.
And well done for that.
On the presumption in favour of sustainable development, there's nothing more going to be built. We're not adding anything to it. Same number of people are living there that are living there at the moment, and they seem to be sustaining themselves quite well as they are. So I think that one's not. As it comes to facilitating health and well-being of Fenland residents, I think if we've got a family living in a caravan, to put them in a home, and especially in flood zone 3, when we're putting bedrooms upstairs, that would certainly facilitate health and well-being if it gets to the point where it's flooding. And LP 16. Protecting high quality environments across the district. I think this is a big leap forward in terms of the environment for the people who are going to live there. We're taking down an old farm building and we're putting a new purpose-built dwelling for somebody to live in. And it may not win any architectural awards for high quality homes, but at the same time it is providing a home for someone. It's making it a much better living accommodation for residents of Chatteris. Would be my reasons for going against officer's recommendation.
Yeah, I think I'm more than satisfied with those conditions. Councillor Benny, have I got a second? Councillor French?
Yes.
So,
Yes, also under LP 16, it does not adversely impact on the amenity of neighbours, and H provides sufficient private amenity space suitable for the type of etc. etc.
yeah, before you added, I was quite happy with Councillor Benny's, but that's added more to weight to the argument, I think, Councillor French. So
yeah, I'm not sure whether we can or whether we can't. Can we put a condition that it cannot be sold off separately?
David?
Chairman, I mean, that is a standard, relatively standard condition with regards to an annex. I think the issue that we would potentially have here, but it's slightly going down what may or may not happen in the future, is if we get an application to remove that condition, essentially it's a separate 3-bed house.
Condition can be put on to start with.
Yeah.
We haven't got a crystal ball.
I'll bring Councillor Benny in then.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more than happy to have that as a condition on there.
Yeah.
Looking at what it is in front of us, that is what it is. And if that is a condition, I'd be more than happy for that condition to be applied to that.
Yeah, I'm more than happy. I'm more than happy to that, and I'm sure the applicant will be. So anyway, so going back to that, we've got a proposal to go against officer recommendation to approve this application with that condition put on. It's proposed by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French. We'll go with the vote on that proposal. Thanks. That application has been approved. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on reasonably quickly. I'll now hand over to David once again to present application agenda item number 6, F/YR21/1522/0. Agenda item number 6. David, when you're ready again, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application to erect up to 2 dwellings. It's an outline application with all matters reserved. The site is land southeast of Brown Hospital Road in Doddington. The application site is shown in red on the aerial photo and also on the location plan. It's located on the eastern side of Hospital Road to the north of Doddington Hospital. Some members may recall granting planning permission contrary to officer recommendation in June 2020 for 2 plots fronting Hospital Road immediately to the south of Brown, and these are currently in the process of being developed. The aerial photo and the location plan shows the generally rural character of the area. Stated previously, this is an outline application with all matters reserved. The layout plan on the screen is therefore indicative only, showing how the site could be developed. The 2 plots I referred to previously are shown on the bottom of the plan, with the 2 new plots shown towards the top, and these will be accessed from a roadway running along the southern edge of the site, which is the kind of the dark grey strip running to the right of the dwellings. The current access point to the site, indicated as being the point of access for the application, is shown in the upper 2 images, as is the general sort of character of the site at the moment. And then the lower image shows one of the previously approved plots, which is currently under construction. To summarise, it is considered that there would be significant harm to the character and appearance of the area through allowing this further in-depth development within the countryside on the fringe of the settlement. In addition, the site is considered to be located in an unsustainable location with limited connectivity for pedestrians to the main settlement, and there is an objection from the Highway Authority on this basis. The officer recommendation is therefore to refuse planning permission as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you once again, David, for that. We have 1 speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Mr. Cutteridge to make his presentation to the committee. When you're seated, Mr. Cutteridge, you've got 5 minutes. And of course, Mr. Cutteridge is the applicant. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd just like to point out a few of the details regarding our planning application. Unfortunately, we didn't get support for the parish council. I would like to say they've mentioned that the road condition is in poor condition. It's by far in poor condition. Coming here today, there's not a single pothole down Hospital Road, and it was only checked a few weeks ago and is checked regularly. I've actually driven through more coming through March Town than I did down our own road. We had a number of objections from Askham Row. I've spoken to these people. They are more concerned that there will be property built on the land behind them that we own if this is passed today. We have no intention on developing this land because as we wish to keep horses there. I had a meeting with Highways before this application went in, where I walked the road and discussed the roadway in detail. They said the road was more than adequate to take care of the amount of traffic that we have at the moment. They also, because we was looking at the planning application for mega plants for a cafeteria and shop, we agreed to put in additional passing places. I would like to add, this road was the access to Doddington Hospital for over 40 years. This was the main access to that hospital, and it had far, far more traffic. We're looking at 2 dwellings, and the access, the entrance is right beside one of the accesses that went in to Doddington Hospital. We are located 0.4 miles from the centre of the village if you take into account the shop and clock tower. Doddington spreads way further, well over a mile in most directions. We walk our children and bike our children to school, and we live further along this lane. You can access the village comfortably by walking. There is a street light at the end of Hospital Road that lights that area of the road very well in the evening. We have walked that road many a time coming back from a drink, and you can comfortably see further on than where this application access is. When you leave the plot position, you can comfortably see from that position to the end of the road to see if there's any oncoming traffic. We have a number of dog walkers and people visiting mega plants most days. We have never had a single incident or accident involving any pedestrian on that road. I have lived there all of my life for the past 47 years. Down Turf End Road, they have 11 dwellings, which is 0.5 miles from the centre of the village, going from the shop or clock tower. Their road is narrower, with no street lighting, with one narrow verge and a hedge the other side with a blind bend. And yet there is 11 dwellings there and 4 more being built at this moment in time. The properties will have their own sewage treatment plants. Doddington is already struggling to cope with the sewerage in Doddington. They will not affect the sewage in any way. The council have pointed out, Fenland District Council, that some of the properties down Hospital Road have an agricultural tie to them to be on Hospital Road. One of those properties was sold a few years ago to people that had no link to agriculture. We did go to the council to point this out to Fenland District Council. They was completely uninterested in this at that time, yet they bring it up here today. But obviously we had no tie on the previous 2 that have already been passed. There'll be no significant change on the character of the area, as the buildings, because you cannot see in the photographs, because the photographs taken the opposite way, but on the land that belongs to the hospital grounds, there is a substantially large building on there, which is way, way bigger than these properties. They have also mentioned that people will have to take their bins 30 yards to the entrance. Thistledown and Oak Tree Close in Doddington, you do have to take your bins just as far as that. And I expect these dwellings to be family homes, not elderly people homes, so they expect them. I do consider these to be affordable. These people think these are not affordable properties. To buy a building plot and build your own building is half of that to any property in Doddington that's a 4-bedroom home. The people have bought it. We have planted a number of trees, over 10,000. In conclusion, like to say Doddington is a growth village. I don't consider us too far out of the village. There is no flood risk on the site. Sewage will not be a problem.
That's your time up now. Thank you.
No worries. Sorry. I'll try to get a bit more in, but no, thank you.
Yeah. Lightning. No.
Oh, questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. You mentioned about a sewerage management that who have their own sewerage system. Who will pay for the management of that sewerage system?
You don't need to. The people in their own properties have a sewage treatment plant installed for each property, and the water that comes from those is clean enough just to go straight directly into the drain.
So they will pay for their own sewage treatment plant.
They do.
Thank you.
Each property.
Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Guttridge, you said in your presentation that the road down there was the only access to the hospital. I would contest that that is not true.
It was the entrance. It was
historically, the gatehouse was the entrance to the hospital, not Hospital Road.
The gatehouse was the exit. It was a one-way system since I was a small boy, because I've lived there all my entire life. So it's been the exit for the last 48 years.
But historically, it's not been.
Yep, thank you for that, Councillor Sutton. Anybody else got any questions? Mr. Guttridge, before we let him go? Can't see. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your time. May I just take the opportunity to thank the councillors in their support before I stuck to my word, and before the planning application, it went directly to Mega Plants business, and we now have 5 new employees due to that, and the business is forever expanding. Thank you.
Thank you for enlightening the committee on that. Thank you. Right, so I'd like to now invite members to put questions to officers. If you'd like to ask a question or put any clarification, please can raise your hand. So it's questions to clarifications to officers. No, I can't see any. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Now I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect to the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So we're in debate, guys. Thank you. Who wants to kick that off? Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I tend to think the officers have got this one right. We went against their advice on the first two and gave the applicant the benefit of the doubt. It was a very much unbalanced decision at that time because we felt it was infill between what is the hospital complex and the bungalow to the northwest, I suppose it would be. And I think the applicants have done well. But I think this is a step too far. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Sutton. We're still in debate. Anybody wants to carry that forward? No. No, can't see anybody. No, thank you very much for that then. So that's quite a short debate on that one. So thank you, members. Does any officers have any points of clarification before I ask for a proposer? So shake of the head from David says no. So now I'd like to invite members to make a proposal on the application. Please do so by raising your hand. Councillor Sutton. Okay, so Councillor Sutton's proposal forward to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application. Again, it's been proposed by Councillor Sutton. Have you got a seconder for that? Councillor Miss Scanlon. So on that proposal to refuse the application, we're going to now go to the vote. Okay. Those in favour of going with officer's recommendation to refuse this, put hands up, please. There's two. So all those against that proposal. Seven. So any abstentions? Councillor Mayor. So that proposal obviously has been defeated. So we're looking for a new one. Councillor French.
Thank you. I would like to go against officers' recommendations and approve this application. I believe that the applicant, I don't remember the application for the first two, but I did visit the site the other day. I thought it would finish it off, and I'm quite impressed to hear that all the funds that were acquired from the two dwellings were actually pumped into mega plants. I've only been to mega plants twice. And you know, if nobody's been there, you want to go there, it's worth going. But very, very impressed that he's now employing an additional 5 members of the public. And I think it's businesses, you know, we've just come out of COVID. You know, we need to be helping businessmen as much as we possibly can. I'll think about it in a minute.
Yeah,
Are you seconded?
Would you like to second it?
well, unless anybody else has a burning desire to, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've got LP3. I mean, the gentleman, I'm sorry, Mr. Cutledge, I can't quite remember his name, sorry about that.
Mr. Cutteridge.
Cutteridge, that's it. I mean, he said, you know, this is 0.4 of a mile from the centre of town. Doddington is a very long village. There are, I know Doddington quite well. There are places much further away from the centre of town, and we are running out of brownfield sites. You know, we don't want linear development, but when we get depth of development, that doesn't seem to be right either. So we're not progressing down the road any further. We're now making use of the good land that's behind there for properties. So that would answer LP3. LP12, as you can see, I haven't prepared with my reasoning for this. Let's have a look, rural development policy. There is a hierarchy. Doddington is a growth village. Yeah, it says the site retains and respects the natural boundaries such as trees. When I was there were trees around there, and it's not protruding out any further into the open countryside. And the hospital, it's got the hospital site behind it. This to me is making good use of the depth of development that we can have there. It's not putting any strain on the sewage works at Doddington, of which we all know there are problems there, even if the Anglian Water don't want to acknowledge that. And I think, again, like Councillor French, this makes good use of land, and it still leaves land for Scuttledge to keep his horses there as well. Anything else? Anything else, Mr. French?
LP
To add to
5,
that, Councillor French?
yes, and LP 5 meeting housing needs.
I'm quite happy with those. So we'll now go to the vote on that proposal to go against officer's recommendation to approve this application. Can we please have a vote on that application, on that proposal? Against?
3 against.
That's clearly, that application clearly has been approved then. Thank you very much for that. Right, now I'll hand over again to David to present agenda item number 7, F/YR21/15360. Agenda item number 7. Again, David, please, when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an outline application with all matters reserved again to erect a single dwelling and garage land west of Lowlands, College Bridge Lane in College Bridge. The application site is shown in red on the location plan and on the aerial photo. It sits on the western side of College Bridge Lane, sort of at the edge of College Bridge, which is defined as an other village in the local plan. The sporadic nature of development on the west of College Bridge Lane is apparent, as is the proximity to the open agricultural land surrounding the village. The application is in outline with all matters reserved. An indicative plan has been submitted, which is on the screen, showing how a development could be accommodated within the site. To draw members' attention to a previous refusal on the site, which was actually refused by the Planning Committee in 2014, and which was dismissed at appeal in 2015, with the inspector concluding that the development did not represent infilling due to the sporadic nature of development and was therefore contrary to LP3, with an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the area. Photos are on the screen showing the application site and its surroundings. And to summarise, consistent with the previous decision of the council and the planning appeal decision, it is considered that the developments proposed would not comply with policy LP3, as the development does not constitute the infilling of a gap within a continuous built frontage and would adversely impact the character and appearance of the area. The recommendation is therefore to refuse planning permission as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you once again, David. We have 2 speakers on this application. First, I'd like to invite Mr. Bryant. He is an objector to this application. He'd like to make his presentation to the committee. You have 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Obviously, when you're seated and ready to go. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Take your time and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Our neighbours are respecting your COVID policies, so instead of a dozen of our neighbours standing up over there to demonstrate their support, we've got this map to show you instead of this. The 11 objections to this application are marked in blue and the application site is outlined in red. Despite appearances, this is not NIMBYism. This is our local community asking the council to uphold its local plan for us and to execute its statutory duty to have regard to the provisions of the local plan, the MPPF, and also previous appeal decisions. This is what we'll be covering, and I'll move swiftly on into the contents. We were pleased that Elm Parish Council voted to object to this application. They quoted LPs 3 and 15 and the MPPF. Turning to LP 16, environmental protection. Last year, in 2 brutal phases, trees, a long-established native hedgerow, and all other vegetation were destroyed on the site. All wildlife disappeared, and for example, a flock of 50 to 100 sparrows that lived in the hedge and the inevitable sparrowhawks that fed on them, they've all gone. Just because this preemptive environmental damage by the builder that owns the land makes it look like a building site, doesn't mean it should become one. LP3. This application fails to meet the requirements of LP3, as we shall demonstrate, and it should be refused. It is as simple as that. It breaches LP3. We also note in the local plan, paragraph 217 contains a reference to flat open landscapes and big skies. So we have one to show you. This is the view from lowlands opposite the site. The committee have an opportunity today to continue to protect this view that many local residents cherish. Sustainability. From the 2014 Planning Committee minutes for this site, we note 2 particular quotes. Firstly, if we pass this and agree that this is sustainable, in Councillor Sutton's view, there's not another unsustainable area in Fenland. And secondly, members feel that the proposal is not in a sustainable area. The table in this slide shows a striking difference to the supposedly similar journeys from site to amenities between the appeal site at Eastwood End, which was used to justify the original proposal by the applicant. Both we and the planning officer reject the applicant's comparison of this application site with that appeal at Eastwood End, as these sites fall under different levels in the LP3 hierarchy. As the comparison fails, it means the acceptability of the site under LP3 fails with it. These 3 rejections were all made under the then new, but still current local plan of 2014. Development on this site is unambiguously contrary to the local plan. Neither Collett's Bridge nor its protection in the plan have changed since 2014, and it remains a single-track cul-de-sac with no turning or passing places, as a sign at the beginning of the lane shows you. So in conclusion, development on the site fails to meet LPs 3, 12, 15, 16, and the MPPF. We have one more thing, a key message that can be summarised by this statement. The principle of development on the site has never been accepted by this committee. It is the case that the officer report and decision notice in 2014 on the first application stated that the principle of development was accepted. However, this was based on the officer using a completely incorrect statement of LP3 for Collett's Bridge. They simply got it wrong. Later in 2014, in the second application, that was overturned by this committee, and you ruled that the correct LP3 decision you used and made it clear that development on the site is contrary to that policy. And that was then confirmed by the appeal inspector a few months later in 2015. The applicant's design and access statement refers to that 2014 appeal decision when they comment that the development on the site is, in their words, the conflict with LP3. They then go on to argue, using the now debunked Eastwood End comparison, that it be reasonable to conclude that the application site is within a settlement and can therefore be considered as an infill plot which is acceptable in terms of policy LP3. That is false. It ignores point 6 of that appeal decision. It was crystal clear. Due to the sporadic nature of the development on the west side of the road, I do not consider that the appeal site constitutes a single dwelling infill site within an otherwise built-up frontage.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. We confidently assert that the principle of development on the site should not be acceptable to you. The application should be refused for breach of 3, 12, 15, 16 and the MPPF. And we'd like to remind you the best thing said about Collett's Bridge from 2014. Let Collett's Bridge be as Collett's Bridge is. And we ask you to reject the proposal and support our local community in their support of the council's local plan. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I have here copies of all the relevant documents to back up the statements and quotes I've made. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryant, for your very eloquent presentation there. So members raised any questions or clarifications to Mr. Bryant? Councillor French.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bryant. Can you tell me when the hedgerow was removed?
The hedgerow was moved last year.
Any more questions for Mr. Bryant? No, thank you very much for your presentation once again. Thank you. Thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Gareth Edwards. Of course, he's the agent for the application, to make his presentation to the committee. As he already knows, he's got 5 minutes as well. So thank you very much. When you're ready, Mr. Edwards. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today in support of the application for a dwelling on land west of Lowlands, Colletts Bridge Lane, Elm. The application comes before you as an outline application, which we have not committed any matters and would be happy to accept any condition which limits the proposed dwelling type. The site is within flood zone 1, so both single story and 2-story dwellings could be accommodated on the site, which, as we all know, many sites come before you in flood zones 2 and 3. As the report states, the site is positioned between residential dwellings known as, I'm going to get this wrong, but La Chimère to the south and the Hazels to the north, both are 2-story dwellings. The site is in a cluster of dwellings in Colletts Bridge Lane, and the development of this site would, in our opinion, fill the gap and provide a good-sized family dwelling, which has ideal links to neighbouring villages and towns, being in close proximity to the A1101. The site mirrors others that have been approved recently in the district, and we do not believe it will set a precedent, as each application should be treated on its own merits. The proposal comes with a number of letters of support, along with the support of the Environmental Health, Highways and Environment Agency. The proposed makes the best use of the land and will finish off this part of the village and the lane as a whole. A proposed site has ample size to accommodate both surface water and foul water drainage, and will be subject to a soakage test carried out in accordance with BRE 365. Consideration is also to be given to rainwater harvesting, and all soakways will be positioned so as not to have any detrimental effect on neighbouring properties and building regulation compliant. As has been said many occasions in this committee, parcels of land like this are massively valuable to housing supply in the district and are at a prime. Plots like this will be developed by self-builders or a small developer that are being priced out of the larger sections of land due to the cost of infrastructure and land price. Small builders and self-builders employ local tradesmen and agents and buy locally from local merchants, which in turn contribute to other businesses in the district. To conclude, the site is within flood zone 1. In our opinion, is infilling development between 2 dwellings and will utilise a section of land that has no use for farming and will provide a plot for a family to build a home on. I would ask you to support the proposal and approve the application with the conditions you deem appropriate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Edwards, for that. Now, members, any questions, clarifications to Mr. Edwards? I can't see any hands up. No, thank you very much for that. Members, questions, clarifications to officers? No, can't see any. Got away with that one lightly, David. Thank you, everybody. I'd now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor Sutton. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I know the road really well, like the back of my hand. Despite no objection from the highways, it is a single, and I mean a very single narrow track. I don't know if anybody's been down there lately, but it's, you know, you take your life into your own hands, whether you're on foot or on a bicycle, or it is so narrow. I've been down there when I've been on residence issues, and you know, I've had to reverse almost all the way out to let. And on one occasion, I was down there on refuse day, and you know, had to wait for the refuse lorry to come out. it is just not the right place of development, in my view. I think the officers have got this exactly right. That is backed up by the parish council. That is backed up by 2 decisions from this committee during the current local plan, and 4 decisions prior to that, the 2 previous local plans, one of which was appealed and dismissed. So, you know, I just think we have to accept that there are some areas that are just not developable. And I think this lane is one of them. Yes, we want to see nice dwellings in and around, but not at the expense of making the road more dangerous or infilling where it shouldn't be infilled. I was of the view before we had it come. We had it come, and 5 members still on this committee probably will remember it. They being Councillor Murphy, Miss Scanlon, yourself, Chairman, Councillor Mrs. Mayor, and myself. Those 2 decisions under this plan was unanimous, and I would hope that this committee will support me as a ward councillor. The parish council, they're dead against it. There was parish councillors discussing walking their dogs down there and how dangerous it is. And I would hope that this committee would do the same as the other committees have done and support officers' recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Sutton, for giving us your in-depth knowledge of the roadway. Thank you for that. Councillor Miss Scanlon and Councillor French.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I remember this road very well. In fact, we had to back a coach out of it because the coach couldn't turn around when we used to do site visits on the coaches. Yeah, I totally agree with what Councillor Sutton said. This is an inappropriate location to develop in the way that has been proposed. It is a dangerous road. So we had to back a coach all the way out, which I had to applaud the skill of the driver in getting it out, because he drove down completely blind and not knowing where he was going, then suddenly confronted with, oh my God, I've got to get out of here. In which, to his credit, he did by going in reverse. So I'm in total support of the officer's recommendation on this site.
Thank you, Councillor Miss Scanlon. Councillor French.
Yes, thank you. Well, we did actually go down Monday, and we were fortunate. We did go down to the bottom, and we did manage to turn around, but only because obviously people were out at work. I think it's very, very sad that that was a hedgerow, and just for you know, financial gain to rip out something that was so important to that area, I think was absolutely appalling. I wasn't on the committee when the other applications were refused, but I fully support the officer's recommendations on that.
Thank you for those pertinent points, Councillor French. So we're still in debate. Anybody like to add to that? Can't see anybody. Thank you very much for that. So members, questions or clarifications for officers? David, for David, primarily, of course. No. Nothing for you, David. So, right, we'll nip on then straight away to invite members to make a proposal on the application. Please do so by raising your hand. Councillor Sutton.
We go with officer's recommendation, and I would just like to reiterate that I would really appreciate the support of the committee for the parish council and the local residents. Thank you.
Have we got a seconder for Councillor Sutton's? Councillor Mayor. So we've got a proposition to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application. It's proposed by the Ward Councillor Sutton and seconded by Councillor Mayor. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please? That application has been refused. Thank you. Before I go on, does anybody need a coffee break or anything, or a toilet break or anything else, or shall we press on?
Mr. Chairman, I have got some donuts for the members of the committee and officers, so I think we can have a 5-minute break.
Yeah, well, we need to be back. We need to be back by 2:25 so I'm being very generous. Thank you, Councillor French.
So please come and have a donut.
Members, can I ask you to take your seats, please?
Right, thank you for being so prompt, members. I'll now hand over to David Rowan to present application FY/R 22/0012F, agenda item number 8. So over to you, David, when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a full planning application to erect a single dwelling involving the demolition of an existing agricultural building on land east of 723 Whittlesea Road, March, which actually is Turves. The application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. As you can see, it sits behind the frontage development on Whittlesea Road at the edge of Turves, and the site is within flood zone 3. There is an existing Nissan style agricultural building within the site which is to be demolished. This was previously given approval for a conversion under the Class Q permitted development route, although there was a later refusal for further proposal, and at present there is no extant or current approval in place regarding this building. The application proposes a dwelling in the middle of the site as shown, accessed via the existing agricultural access track, sort of running diagonally between the existing dwellings. The elevations of the proposed dwelling are shown. The upper left image here shows the front or the south elevation. I would draw members' attention to the projecting front gable, the glazing and the open end and the superstructure and balcony feature at the right hand side of that image. This is then shown in more detail on the upper right image and also on the lower left image. The lower right image is the west elevation facing towards the rear of the properties on Whittlesea Road, and in particular I would draw members' attention to the first floor windows on this elevation, and in particular the middle window which is to serve a bedroom. The floor plans are shown for members' information. The image here shows the dwellings adjacent to the site, so fronting onto Whittlesea Road. This image shows the access way, sort of where it emerges into the site from between the existing dwellings. And then this just shows the existing building in a view from the west. Here we've got the relationship shown between the existing building and the application site and those neighbouring properties from actually within the neighbouring properties. And then we've got a further elevated view of this. As you can see, the site of the proposed dwelling effectively is just to the left-hand side of the existing agricultural building. I think this image also gives a fairly good perspective of the site, showing effectively how it sort of almost blends into the agricultural land beyond. To summarise, the site is considered to be located outside the continuous built form of Turves, as defined in the local plan, and does not constitute infilling. The principle of development is therefore contrary to policy LP3 of the local plan. The backland nature of the site, combined with the design and appearance of the dwelling, would result in development forming a discordant feature to the detriment of the character and appearance of the area, contrary to policies LP12 and LP16. In addition, there is also the potential loss of amenity to the residents of Whittlesea Road to the west through overlooking. As the site is outside the continuous built form of the settlement and is within flood zone 3, the area of search for the sequential test is considered to be district-wide. Clearly, there will be sites in lower areas of flood risk which are available for development. Therefore, there is a clear conflict with local and national policy due to the failure to meet the sequential test. In addition, the exception test is also not passed, as no benefits have been put forward in terms of sustainability to justify the flood risk. In addition, inadequate information has been submitted regarding ecology in relation to the demolition of the existing building, and as such there is also a conflict with policy LP19. The recommendation is therefore to refuse planning permission for the reasons set out in the agenda.
Yeah, thank you once again, David. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Gareth Edward. Of course, again, he's the agent to make his presentation to committee. Again, you have 5 minutes. Gareth, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today in support of the application for an executive dwelling at the agricultural building land east of 723 Wiltsey Road, March. The application comes before you with the support of March Town Council and all other standard consultees. The site is within flood zone 3, however, it is no different to the whole of the village, which is also all within flood zone 3, but it is a defended space. And many other developments within the district have been and the submitted flood risk assessment demonstrates that the scheme can be technically safe from flooding and has the support of the Environment Agency. Technically, the site address is in March, where under LP3, the majority of development is to be found in the market towns. I think, although technically it is in March, anyone would associate it with Turves, which is a small village capable of development. The site is in a cluster of dwellings with a continuous frontage of a mixture of dwelling type. The site also mirrors a number of recent approved dwellings within the district and surrounding area, with a recent approval for 6 dwellings further along Wiltsey Road, which comprises of 4 frontage dwellings and 2 further executive dwellings to the rear. One of these executive dwellings was only approved under plan and reference F/YR21/0832F on the 8th of October 2021. Again, and this was a revised design, but this proposal highlights that tandem forms of development have recently been approved in Turves. The dwelling has been designed so as not to have any detrimental impact on the neighbouring properties and will utilise an existing access onto the site and upgrade it as it is required by CAMS highways. The only window of significance that will have any impact on the neighbouring dwelling is to bedroom 4, and this is some 30 metres distance to the rear of the elevation of 717 Wiltsey Road. It should also be noted that the site has an existing agricultural building on it, which previously had an approval for its conversion to a residential dwelling. This, we believe, could be converted under a Part Q application. It also further emphasises that built form already exists on the site, so that there is already a tandem form of development on the site. We feel the proposed dwelling will enhance the site, is not detrimental to the current building, has no restrictions as it has no restrictions on the time that the building can be used at present. And the proposal will create a use consistent with the neighbouring residential dwellings at the front. We have had an ecological survey and the report carried out on the site, which Natural England have confirmed that the proposed development will not have a significant adverse impact. The proposed building can be built on the site before the existing building needs to be removed, so any further surveys can be carried out at the required timeframes. We would recommend that any approval comes with a condition to provide biodiversity enhancements both on the building and within the site, and also a landscape condition, so this can be provided and habitat can be provided to encourage biodiversity. The proposal makes the best use of the land and will finish off this part of the village and remove the conflict between the existing residents and any future non-residential use in the existing building. Our proposed site has ample size for both surface water and fair water drainage and will be under BR 365 design. I would ask you to support the proposal and approve the application with the conditions you deem appropriate. This will remove any future conflict with neighbouring residential dwellings. It has been designed so as to have no detrimental impact on neighbouring dwellings and will provide an executive family residence for the applicant on a site that already has a building on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Edwards, please, if you have any. Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, Mr. Edwards, in the site plan history, approval was granted under Class Q in 2015, and it was refused in 2019. And I understand from the report that was due to a change in national guidance. I just wondering why, didn't make use of the 2015 approval. And do you feel you missed the boat?
The applicant purchased the site with that approval in place, and allowed it to run out. He then applied for it himself. The change in policy was obviously because of the size and height of the existing Nissan hut on the site. It can achieve 2-story development on it, but that would have meant construction, which the change in policy happened that under Part Q we couldn't provide construction to form the first floor. So if he'd have built out the first one, it would have been okay. But unfortunately, he missed his chance. But as I say, we think moving forward, it could come in as another Part Q as a single-story residence.
It would fulfil the Part Q in your view as a single story. So there is and will be a building there, come what may.
Yes. Yeah, it's already there. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Any more questions for Mr. Edwards? No, thank you very much for that. Members, questions to officers, please. Councillor Murphy, thank you.
Yeah, just one simple one really. 5.5, where it says local residents, interested parties. There's 5 letters of objection, but there's not actually one for approval of it here. Is that a typo error, or is there nobody for it?
Through you, Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, the representations that we've received are as set out in the report. So we've got 5 objections and no letters of support.
Oh, thank you.
Any more? Councillor Sutton, and then I'll take Councillor Scanlon next. Thank you.
If I may, Chairman, David, had the I know this is all hypothetical, but had the 2015 Class Q still been in time, I'm sure I remember reading somewhere where there was a fallback position where if you've got Class Q, the fallback position is that you could then come back in. Never used to be like it in the old days, but I'm sure I read somewhere that the fallback position would be a material consideration.
Through you, if I may, Chairman. The fallback position would be a material consideration if there was a fallback position, but there isn't a fallback position.
Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I know this area quite well. It's just that's my ward. The new builds that Mr. Edwards commented on are in fact roadside construction, not background, which is what this is. Yes, it's had queue, but then it's background queue. It's not what's being proposed here. This is background construction, whereas the proposed new premises within TERVs are in fact roadside.
Thank you, Councillor Scanlon. So any more questions to officers at all? No. Right, so now I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So we're in proposal territory here, guys. Debate, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, guys. So we're in debate, just for clarification. Who wants to kick this off? Surely somebody does. Thank you for coming at the last minute, Councillor Sutton. I'm always going to rely on you. Carry on, please.
Yeah, I think this is quite a difficult one, given that it did have class Q, and then for technical reasons, it didn't get class Q on the second application. So and that was really my question to Mr. Edwards. We're going to get residential on this site come what may, because if it goes back in for class Q under single story. Oh, David's shaking his head, so I better just ask that question back to David then.
Through you, if I may, Chairman, I don't think members, with all due respect, are in any position to be predetermining what may or may not happen with any class Q submission that comes in the future, and as to whether that would or wouldn't be acceptable or even qualify under class Q. So I think all members can do in terms of determining this application this afternoon is to decide the application on its merits in terms of what's there at the moment, which is a derelict agricultural building with no planning approval on it.
But given that advice, then, which is very gratefully accepted, David, thank you for that. My view is that if it came in for class Q as a single story and it passed all the relevant tests, i.e., you know, had a structural survey and it would then get and be used residentially. And given it's got a building there that's going to deteriorate, it ain't going to be too long. And old Romney buildings don't last very long when they're not used. I guess I'd rather see a dwelling on there than I would that old building. It's a difficult one because, as David says, you know, it hasn't got the fallback position currently, which is a shame because it did have. So there's that balance between just a little bit of change in national policy, where it passed on one occasion and failed on the next. Yeah, I'll have to listen to, you know, what other members have got to say, I think, Chairman, before making my mind up on this one.
Oh, Mrs. French, Councillor French has got something to say. Oh, Councillor Benny's next then, and then we'll have Councillor French. Thank you.
I mean, I looked at this one when I read the report, and I'll be honest, I've got no strong view either way on it particularly. But listening to what Councillor Sutton is saying, if the gist of what you're trying to say is right, there will be a dwelling here.
There could be a dwelling.
There could be a dwelling here.
If it passed all the Q key, class Q bits and pieces, then there could be, because it did have.
Yeah.
In 2015, it had permission for residential dwelling.
Yeah. I mean, to me,
I'm not saying it will, it could if it passed all of them.
Yeah. I mean, looking at an old missing hut, you are never going to make a good home out of that. Whatever you do, I mean, it needs pulling down, and if it's going to have something on it, then it might as well have something that's worthy of the site, which is what the proposal is that's before us today. So, yeah, I look at it. It doesn't particularly follow the building line of the street, but then it's a bit hit and miss. I mean, you have to go through 3 lines to get to the place anyway. Although that's got any relevance at all to what we're looking at here today, but you know, it did have planning permission on it before, and as much as there's letters of objection, which I'm sure there are from local residents that live along there, would I want to look at a converted missing hut or a nice home? I know I would much rather have a nice home. We need quality homes in this area. I'll listen to a little bit more debate as to where other members feel this could go, but from being indifferent, I feel I probably could support this. Let's see what other members have to say.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a bit like Councillor Sutton and Councillor Benny on this. We have to look at what's in front of us. Can you tell me, is there going to be a great element of overlooking the other properties? All right, I'll come back then.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it occurred to me, looking at the drawings and what have you on this, that yeah, we've got this should we say, rough looking Nissan at the moment on there. And obviously people turn around and say they lose their view. But having said that, I don't think that actually comes into planning applications losing your view. But having a nice house on there, which is obviously that's what's going to be there, taking the roughness and hut down, put a nice house on there. The people who have the nice house will almost certainly have a very nice garden as well for them to overlook. So I think the outlook costs will actually be a lot better than it would have been before.
Thank you for those wise comments, Councillor Purser. Anybody else got any more? We're still in debate. No, thank you for that. So, you're just in on time.
I mean, looking at the overlooking, I believe Mr. Edwards said there's 30 metres between that and the other property, and 20 metres is the boundary between that for overlooking. So therefore, that isn't a relevant part to this. You know, the fact that there most probably will be a dwelling on there, or they're cool with it, because this won't be left. This will not be dropped. If somebody paid money for a building plot, they are not going to leave that to be an agricultural building. And something needs doing with this. And I'm always very supportive of a positive development rather than just leaving things to fall down. No, I think from looking at this, I could support this application. The overlooking, just getting my head around which way the boundary lines of this run. You'll see there are windows that look, but they're not no more than they are anywhere else. I mean, my neighbour who lives across the street from me, his windows overlook me, and I the same do him. So, as Councillor French has said many times, if you want to view by a picture, Mrs. French. All right. I actually feel that, yeah, I could support this one.
Yeah, I think I'll come in there. I called this in for the determination for the committee because I thought this had some possibilities that the committee would like to decide on. And indeed, it's proved right. There's been 2 or 3 positive comments, 3 or 4 positive comments, and 1 not so positive, or 2 not so positive comments. But I just think, and I agree with Councillor Sutton, I think this will come back on, or may well come back and have a house put on this. It's not a very nice barn, is it? I mean, and I think my own personal opinion, a nice big house on there would do the trick. I mean, we spoke about, it's all in flood zone 3 turfs anyway, and we looked upon the 6 on the opposite side of the road, Mr. Cobb's. We all thought, oh, I don't know about that, but when you look at them, they're nice houses and they're a credit to turfs, aren't they? When you go into turfs, you look at those, you think, my goodness me, they're nice. So I think on balance, I would support this application, but again, I'll wait to listen to what anybody else has got to add to the debate. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this, as it, I know it's under March Town Council area, but it relates more to Whittlesey, and Turves is under Whittlesey Town Council. So I'm very much on the balance. So I'd like to hear perhaps a little bit more input from the Whittlesey Town councillors, albeit well, you know, let's be fair about it. Turves is Whittlesey. It's not March. So I think it'd be good for me personally to hear, you know, a little bit more of expansion on what the Whittlesey councillors think.
Councillor French has got some ideas on that.
Well, I don't know if it's an idea, but it's definitely March West because it's part of my
Definitely.
district ward. And I never understand how I've got 6 houses 7 miles away, but never mind, it is definitely March. What we can't do, we've got to look at what's in front of us, and we certainly.
Indeed.
Sorry? What somebody said. I mean, we do have Whittlesey councillors here. We've got Councillor Mary and Councillor Miscanlon. I'm sure that, you know, they've got a view on it because it would probably, I think it borders Alex. But I don't have a great view on this. I do believe what Councillor, I'm agreeing with myself again with Councillor Sutton, something will be built on there. It would be nice to actually have something decent rather than look at an old Nissen hut.
I don't know if Whittlesey Town, oh, yes, they have. Look, Councillor Miss Scanlon.
Councillor. My personal opinion, if this would have come before Whittlesey Town Council, it would have been refused because it's considered backland development and detrimental to all the properties on the front. And Councillor French is quite right. 491 and 710 are in my ward. The ones on the other side are in Councillor French's ward. But yes, I would have personally recommended refusal of this application as backland development, and I don't think it would have got support from the other councillors. Then I'm not speaking for the other councillors. On my personal opinion, I would have recommended refusal of this application.
Thank you for your input, Councillor Miss Scanlon. Miss Councillor Benny.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to judge them on what is in front of us, and it is in a March ward.
Absolutely.
It is in a March ward. I mean, if we're going to go around and ask, maybe Councillor Topgood could put an opinion in from Wisbech, see what Wisbech councillors would think. I mean, we're all going to have an input on it because we're going to vote on it very soon.
Wouldn't have liked to hope so.
Yeah, and it has. Yeah, we'd like to be home before tea. You know, but it has got the support of March Town Council, which is the process that runs with this, and March Town Council have supported this. When you have an application that you could go either way on, it is the small things that make a difference. And to me, I think this site will have something on it at some point. This is a good proposal. It is the kind of houses we look to see in Fenland, and it has got support from March Town Council, which is the area that is in.
Yes, that was going to be my point. March Town Council support it, and that for me is a good starting point for approving this application. But there we go. Let's, without further ado, anybody got any more to add to the debate before I bring officers in for points of clarification or summing up? So no more debate. David, would you like to add to anything?
Thank you, Chair. I think there's probably 2 or 3 different issues just to pick up in no particular order. I think the first one is that, as members will be aware from the various training sessions that they've had, the views of parish councils and town councils are not a material consideration in the determination of an application. Second point, I think a couple of members have sort of talked about the need to deliver housing. Just to remind the committee that the council currently has a 6.69 year housing land supply. We've had a 95% score, for want of a better description, on the housing delivery test. Therefore, the need to deliver housing that ultimately or otherwise would not comply with the policies of the local plan, there is no need for that. And I think the third and final point, probably just to sort of reiterate the point I made earlier, is that there is no fallback position on this site. There is no guarantee that anything will get planning permission in the future. And with respect, the debate has been a little bit kind of coulda, woulda, shoulda, almost in terms of its tone. And the application needs to be determined on the basis of what's in front of you, not what may or may not potentially possibly happen at some point, maybe possibly in the future. And I don't think there's really a great deal more to add to that. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, I'm just, before we go to the vote, I'm just going to, or proposal, I'm just going to go to Helen. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to sort of follow on from what David had been saying there. So in this case, the material planning considerations to think about are that this is contrary to policy. To think about the flooding issues. I note that there's been comments about the Environment Agency. The comments in the report in terms of what the Environment Agencies have said indicate that they think this is a matter for the Internal Drainage Board that I know we haven't heard from. And then there's the point of biodiversity. So those are things that need to be addressed. In terms of the permitted development point, I think it's also helpful to note that the original 2015 permitted development was for a change of use of the existing building, not for the construction of a different building. So just some points to note there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Councillor French and Councillor Benny.
Yes, thank you for pointing out it will be Middlehaven. I believe it's drainage. It's either 5 or 6, which if you're going to talk about Middlehaven, I'll have to declare in inches because I sit on 3, 5 and 6. But Middlehaven are not consultees, although they get information sent to them, but they're not a statutory consultee. The only time they ever get involved are very large ones where there is massive fishing, which they haven't done twice in the last 20 odd years. But they were big ones. They wouldn't get involved with this single.
Yes, you're quite right, Councillor French. They don't really usually make any comment whatsoever. So Councillor Benny, then Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's flood zone 3, but as we've said many times at this committee, you can build in flood zone 3 in Wisbech, and if you're going to do any building in Turbs, you're going to build in flood zone 3, and it's throughout the district. You know, we haven't got a consistent policy of building or turning everything down in flood zone 3 or passing everything in flood zone 1. It does seem a bit hit and miss. So if the reports are, or if the I think the word I'm looking for, there will be mitigation measures that will take to alleviate the flood risk at this property, which will be done. If not, it won't be built. So again, I don't see any problem with passing this. Maybe we've not been positive enough on this, so I'll be a little bit more positive. I think this is an application worthy of support. I think this will make a very nice home for somebody.
Thank you, Councillor Benny. Councillor Murphy now, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask David something. All the way through here, I got written down on a paper here in front of myself about backland development. About backland development. I can't find it in this at all. Normally, you would have said this is backland development, but is it or isn't it? Because actually, I mean, what we're going to start doing is building backland development on zone 3, flood zones.
David, would you like to object on that?
Through you, Chairman, draw members' attention to proposed reason for refusal number 2. The development proposed would, by virtue of its design and appearance, combined with its backland location, appear as an unattractive and discordant feature. So there's reference to it being a backland site within there.
Sorry, I missed that one then.
Right, have we all done our questions to officers? Because, yep. So, right, I'm going to ask for a proposal on this application. Who'd like to make a proposal? Councillor Mayor?
Yeah, I've sat quietly and listened to all the debate.
You have indeed, Councillor Mayor.
And I think the officers have got it exactly right. And I would go with officers' recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Miss Scanlon, I see that hand raised. So we have a proposal to go with officers' recommendation to refuse this planning application by Councillor Mayor, seconded by Councillor Miss Scanlon. Shall we go to that vote on that? So all those in favour of that proposal, please raise their hands.
All votes, Chairman.
Those against?
Five votes, Chairman.
So that proposal has been done over. So what we'll do now is look for another proposal. Can we have a proposal? Another proposal, please. That's failed, the first one. We need another proposal, please. Let's have a meeting. Let's have a meeting between all of us, not two. Thanks, Councillor Bennett. You're going to propose it, aren't you? Are you? Yeah, you propose it, Councillor Benny. Right, so it's proposed by Councillor Benny, seconded by, have we got a second to Councillor Benny? Councillor French. We've got a proposal by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French to go against officer recommendation to approve the application. On that, could we have the vote on that? Show of hands.
Sorry, can we have Councillor Benny's reasoning, please?
Yeah, well, we can have the reasoning, yeah.
Sorry, Joe. In these settlements, this is for small village developments will be considered on its merits, but will normally be of a very limited nature and normally be within a scale of residential infilling or small business opportunity. It is on a small scale, but I think that the nature of the building and the high quality of the development will outweigh that one. The site is in or adjacent to existing development footprint of the village, which it is. It's not really infill, is it? I certainly don't think it has an impact on the character or appearance of the surrounding countryside, because we're putting a better building there than was there to start with. No, it won't lose the high grade agricultural land. There are no trees and hedgerows there either. Won't put people in any identified risks. So no, I think LP12, I'd be happy with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay then, so just to reiterate, we've got to go against officer's recommendation to approve this application. It's proposed by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French. We'll now go to the vote on that proposal. Thank you. Conditions delegated by officers on obviously a biodiversity report and obviously a biodiversity gain as well. Probably needs to be looked at. So with that, with those conditions in mind, and officer delegation on that.
Reasonable conditions.
Well, yeah, I think David knows that. David knows that I always say reasonable conditions. So that application has been approved. Oh, sorry, yeah, well, but 5-4. So all those against then. That's 4. So that application has been approved. So we did jump the gun a bit, but it was the same. So with that, I'm going to hand over to David once again to present application F/YR22/051. It's a variation of conditions application, agenda item number 9. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application land east of Bank View, Gull Road, Guyerne, in relation to the removal of conditions relating to Planning Permission FYR210425, which was to erect a dwelling on the site in connection with the business. Essentially, to sort of cut through the detail that's in that description, this essentially relates to the erection of a garage on the site. The application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. Planning permission was granted for a dwelling on the site in August 2021 in relation to the operation of the adjacent nursery business. As set out in the report, the application essentially relates to the location of a garage on the site. The left-hand image shows the position of the approved garage sitting adjacent to the rear wall of the proposed dwelling, while the right-hand image shows the position now being proposed to the front of the site, adjacent to the neighbouring bungalow, and indeed actually coming sort of 2 metres forward of this. Unfortunately, the street scene drawings aren't necessarily the clearest, but I'll try to explain them anyway. So the approved, obviously the upper image, the proposed is the lower. The approved scheme would see the garage sat well back into the site, whereas the proposed scheme would see the garage to the front of the site and being more visually prominent, with the scale of this relative to the neighbouring bungalow clearly apparent. So particularly that lower image, the scale of the garage is obviously a lot taller than that existing bungalow next door. Elevations of the proposed and approved garages are shown for members' information. As you can see, the arrangements of the garage would be sort of reorientated as part of the application. And for members' information, the elevations of the dwelling are shown, and these are not proposed to change as part of the current proposals. The application site is shown on the photos. The upper left image clearly shows the scale of the neighbouring bungalow, as well as the side window, which is referenced in the officer report. The garage proposed would not have an ideal relationship with this window, I think it's fair to say. However, this is not considered to be so detrimental to justify a reason for refusal. And then just for members' information, there's a previous view of the frontage of the site from 2019. So to summarise, the garage was originally proposed in this location as part of that original planning application, and as part of the negotiations and discussions on that application was effectively negotiated into a different position as part of that approved scheme. It's considered that to have a garage of the scale proposed in the position at the frontage of the site would form an unduly prominent feature within the street scene, visually dominating the neighbouring bungalow and being to the detriment of the character and appearance of the area. The recommendation is therefore to refuse permission as set out within the officer report. Chair.
Yep, thank you, David. We have one written representation from the agent on this application. I would now like to ask member services to read out this representation on the agent's behalf. So Joe, I think you're doing the honours there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee, for the opportunity to support this application today. Sorry, I cannot be there in person. It is important to make the committee aware that we recently applied to Fenland District Council for a variation of condition application reference FYR21/1490/VOC. This application was approved by Fenland District Council. The aforementioned application was seeking the same details as this application with one material difference. The one material difference between the application presented to you today and the recently approved VOC application is that this application is seeking to move the garage to a different position, forward of the principal dwelling, and consequently altering the elevations of the garage to suit. This is the only difference. Elements of this application regarding changes to the dwelling appearance and the various lines on the site plan have been approved by Fenland District Council already. Therefore, we ask members to focus their attention on the material part of this application, which is seeking to move the garage location. The applicant has discussed the garage position with the neighbour impacted, and whilst not formally written, the neighbour verbally suggested that the garage would be better in the new proposed position, as this means that cars will not be driving near the neighbour's property. This will reduce noise impact to both parties. It is felt that the proposed position of the garage provides an enhancement to the site for the applicants as to allow a clear direction of domestic parking, as well as providing more garden space to the dwelling. Therefore, it is respectfully requested, given the reasons presented today, that the committee support this application. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for reading that out. So now I'd like to invite members to put questions to officers. Any members, got any questions to officers? We'll take Councillor Mayor first and Councillor Benny, then probably I'd like to say something. So Councillor Mayor, your floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask the question, how many variations of conditions people are allowed to put in, please? That's the first question.
Really relevant. Thank you, Councillor Mayor.
Essentially, it can be sort of unlimited, really. Although clearly if a scheme becomes significantly different to the one that was originally approved, then we're probably into the territory of saying it needs an entirely new planning application.
Okay, thank you. Can I carry on now?
Yeah, you can, Councillor Mayor. Please do.
This is the second variation of condition that's come before us for this application. And I believe, and I'd like to be told rightly or wrongly, that this second one is now changing the garage to where it was originally. Am I right?
That's correct, Councillor Mayor, yes.
So how much officer time are we wasting dealing with something that's towing and throwing and it might come back again? Sorry, that's my question.
I think I can answer that, Councillor Mayor. I'm not an officer, of course, but that's partly my fault. When I called that in and had a look at it, I failed to comprehend for once, and I like to think I'm reasonably sharp on this planning, that this is exactly the same as the first application. And inadvertently, I got it wrong. Goodness, I don't admit I'm wrong too often, but I am this time. So this should not come before this committee. in my view, had I've got absolutely correct, and I apologise for officers for getting it totally wrong. So with that, Councillor Benny, thank you.
I mean, I've got a question for officers, because myself and Councillor French went out and had a look at this site on Monday, and the planning notice was tied to the gate where we went, and that is what's on the site, and that doesn't relate in any way to what's on that plan. So I'm really asking, is this the right plan? Because first of all, we've got to make an informed decision. I mean, if you want to have a look at that, that's why I printed it. If you want to have a look. Sorry. But that one. But that doesn't match what's on there. Yeah.
It doesn't match.
This way is for David to come in there and just clarify it. Thank
Thank you. Through you, Chairman. There is an existing dwelling on the site, which sort of sits at the back of the current application site, and which was formerly connected to the nursery business, and which basically doesn't form part of this application. So essentially the dwelling that's got planning permission sits in front of that, and the garage that is the subject essentially of today's decision by members sits even further in front of that. So what's at the back of the site is not of any relevance to today's determination.
Right, okay. Yeah, I see what's happening. I just thought if that was built, that should be at the back there with this one in front of it. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anyway. It doesn't matter. Just from what was in the plan in the pack to what I was seeing was not the same. Doesn't matter.
Well done, Dave. We've sorted that out and clarifying that. So, Councillor Benny, no doubt you're happy. So, any more questions for officers? Can't see any. So, right. So now I'd like to invite members to debate. Oh, before we, is this still in debate? What do you want to do, Councillor Sutton? We're in debate now, so you'd like to speak first on the debate. Carry on, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I went out and had a look. And I also read thoroughly through this document and also the previous application, or the original application, and the case officers to and fro-ing and spending lots of time to get this application where she thought it was acceptable, from a point where it wasn't acceptable. Now, everybody's entitled to do what they want to do, and you know the law allows a variation of condition. But when officers have spent so much time with the agent and the applicant to get it to a position where it's acceptable from a position where it wasn't, and then to come back and want to change back to where it was originally, you know, it beggars belief. And I would be most disappointed if this committee went against officer recommendation on this, because the work put in by Alison in this case was massive to make it come right, and that's good planning. That's good officer work. You know, in lots of authorities, there wouldn't have been that discussion. That would have been chucked out straight away. And I can mention, I won't, but I could mention one not too far away. There wouldn't have been no discussion with that would just said, no, it's not acceptable, gone. But we don't do that here. We negotiate with agents and applicants to get it right first time, and then just to come back. I just think it's just not on. They've got permission. Get on with it. Keep coming back like that. You know, it's just, you know, I'll absolutely support officers, and I commend the officers for the work they do to bring these things, you know, to a point where they are acceptable.
Absolutely agree, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Scanlon, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Point out 10.10 on the other matters. It's noted that the Parish Council recommend refusal of this scheme, citing that councillors feel that any conditions placed on the original planning permission should remain. And they have no further comments on that. I absolutely concur with what Councillor Sutton's just said. All credit to the officers here. They bend over backwards to help developers and agents, and I think they do it to the detriment of this committee and this council, because they literally work their socks off, and I could use other anachronisms, but I don't think they should, because these agents and developers are being lazy. They're getting the officers to do their jobs for them, and I think it should stop, and I think it should have been stopped a long time ago.
Yeah, very pertinent points, Councillor Miss Scanlon. I can't see anybody else on this debate at all, so no, I can't see anybody. Right, officers, have you got any points of clarification? I think you're quite happy with that, aren't you? So now, members, a proposal on this application. Councillor Sutton. I'll take Councillor Sutton's going to propose it. Councillor Mayor is going to second it, obviously. I saw a hand go up. So we've got to go with officers' recommendation to refuse this VOC application. It's proposed by Councillor Sutton, seconded by Councillor Mayor. Shall we have a vote on that proposal, please? Thank you.
Unanimous decision, Chairman.
So thank you, Joe. That application has been well and truly refused. Thank you. Right. So
Thank you, Chairman. This is an outline application with matters committed in respect of access, layout and scale to erect up to 2 dwellings, 2 single-storey dwellings, land southeast of 127 White Road in Easttree. The site is shown in red on the location plan and on the aerial photo. Members will see there's a bit of a discrepancy between the 2 images. There are 2 dwellings shown to the west of the site on the location plan, which aren't actually on that aerial image. And some members may well recall that these were granted a planning committee against officer recommendation in 2019. Members will also see that the site is effectively surrounded by agricultural land and indeed forms part of a wider agricultural field at present. The application is in outline with matters of layout, scale and access committed. It's proposed 2 bungalows aligned with the development to the west, served by a joint access point in front of the westernmost plot. The plan also shows a footpath running across the front gardens of the neighbouring bungalows to form a pedestrian link. An indicative street scene has been provided as part of the application. There's obviously appearance isn't a matter that's committed. And then to move on to the photos, the upper left image shows the dwellings to the west of the site, which have been recently built, and then the nature of the application site as an expansive open agricultural land. This is further shown in the upper right image, and then the lower images show the nature of White Road in this location, which is essentially a rural road with hedgerows and grass verges either side in terms of its character. To summarise, the application site is considered to constitute an area of open countryside outside the built form of the settlement of Easttree, a small village in the settlement hierarchy within the local plan, where residential infilling will normally only be acceptable. Policy LP12 of the local plan seeks to avoid the extension of linear features into the countryside to the detriment of the character and appearance of this. The development is clearly not infilling and would clearly result in the linear extension of the settlements into the countryside with the associated urbanising effect on the character and appearance of the area. As such, the development would be contrary to the policies of the local plan, and the recommendation is to refuse as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. We have 1 speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Lee Bevins, of course he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. When you're nicely settled, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, Chairman and members, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of this. In addressing the officer's reasons for refusal in the executive summary, item 1.2 The previous scheme for 2 bungalows adjacent to this scheme, approved back in 2019, was not residential infilling either. But members agreed that a further 2 dwellings along this section of road followed the general pattern of development along White Road, which is ribbon or frontage development. I disagree with officers that the proposal would fail to respect the core shape and form of the settlement by virtue of following the pattern along White Road with the frontage development. Item 1.3, we do not believe that the site is contrary to policy LP 12 Part A, C, D and E. The site is adjacent to the existing developed footprint of the village, being the 2 large detached bungalows to the northeast. It will not have a harmful impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding countryside, as the dwellings proposed will be single-storey in height and reflect nearby dwellings. The proposal is of a scale and in location that is in keeping with the established form of White Road, which is frontage development again, and it will not adversely harm the character and appearance. And finally, it will extend the linear features of the settlement, but in a manner which is proportionate to the small village of Eastbury, and will provide 2 bungalows offering a wide choice of housing. Officers refer to policy LP 16 C and D in their recommendation, and the site does retain the hedgerow to the front of the site, and this would be reinforced in a future reserve matters application and could be conditioned. The scheme will improve the character of the local area and does not adversely impact on the street scene, settlement pattern or landscape character. The client and L. Bevans Associates have spent some 18 months agreeing the relocation of the speed signage into Eastbury along White Road to slow down traffic entering and exiting the village. Refer to that slide if you can. Yep. This will see an improvement in speed reduction, with the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit being moved some 70 metres southeast from its former position, and the national speed limit exiting the village being moved some 140 metres southeast from its former position. The client has paid for all the works to be carried out for the design and installation of these signs. The proposed scheme will offer well-designed bungalows which will meet local demand. The Town Council support the proposal. Environmental Health have raised no objections, and Highways have offered no objections. The scheme has been amended to extend the footpath on this side of the road to allow pedestrians safe passage into the village centre, and is close to the Sustrand cycle footpath link to the south of the site, which provides sustainable links to Whittlesea. We'd ask members to reconsider the recommendation for refusal and approve the proposal based upon local support for the scheme and my points in this presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bevans. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Bevans, please. No, I can't. You've got away with that again very lightly, haven't you? So thank you very much for that. Members, questions to officers. Speak up or ever hold thy peace, as they say. So no, so thank you for, oh, Councillor French, thank you.
Thank you.
Jolted your memory, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Thank you,
Thank
Councillor
you.
French.
Can I just have clarification? Is this open farm, is it farmland or is it adjacent to farmland?
David, please.
It's farmland. It's an agricultural field.
Okay, thank you.
That's it then. So we'll now move into debate then. So thank you. I'd now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations which are relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So guys, we're in debate. Councillor French.
Sorry, it's a question.
What?
It's another question. Can I ask a question?
Councillor French, you're very, very naughty, but go on. As it's your 48th wedding anniversary, I'll let you carry on, but it must be to the point, quickly.
Okay, it says 5.2, with the existing land use being arable farmland and given close proximity to noise sensitive dwellings. What is noise sensitive dwellings?
That's sort of environmental health speak for effectively dwellings with people living in them being sensitive to getting noise from sources of noise, such as, I suppose, the use of the sort of machinery operating in the field, etc. next to the.
Well, we can stick something like that on every application, everything we say. You want to come and listen to noise next door to me that they're building?
with respect, I don't think that's a relevant comment from them, the environmental people, because when you're building, there's always noise next door to somebody, isn't there? So with that, I'm not going to keep going through the old thing. We're just in debate. Carry on. Let's carry on. Councillor Sutton, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I've got some reservations about this because we went against officer's recommendation on the last two, if I remember rightly. And that was based on a balanced decision that it was adjacent to the built form, which did comply with LP 12, whatever letter was behind it. And in a way, the same happens here. But how? When is next to too far? I think if I remember back in the day when we debated these two, we sort of said, well, it's opposite, 127, so it'll give the village a balance. And I think Councillor Benny, if I remember rightly, would have said or did say it's a lovely dwellings going into the village and makes a nice entrance and that, and we went along with that. But if we put two more here, and I know we look on things each on its merits, but if we put two more here and two more near 127 and then two more next to this with the same basis that is next to the built form, I think the 2014 local plan meant the built form as it was in 2014, not as it is because it's been built to extra. So I'm not so sure that we can carry on, because if we carry on with that mode, we'll end up with Eastry meeting Bennett with two more, and two more. I just don't think that we can carry on like that in the villages. It can't be argued that it's infill, nor could the other two, but it was against the then built form. So I think officers may just about got this right, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Murphy, you've got your hands up. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. I totally agree with Councillor Sutton. I've said this time and time and time again. We keep saying, oh, well, another two won't matter. But the front point is we always get another two like we've got now. And it does matter because you keep going on and on and on along the road, along the roadside. You can't keep doing that. What we should do right from the start is to say no more. And that's the finish of it. We do two, and then we get ourselves into such a pickle, we can't get out of the next two.
Yeah.
Yeah. As my time on the planning committee, I drive this road quite regularly because my daughter lives in Wilsey. And every time I drive past those two bungalows that are there, I look at it and I think if ever there was something worthy of building, they are. I've been looking for a bungalow in Chatteris and I can't find one of that sort of spec and design. And every time I drive past those, I think that was a planning decision that was right. They look absolutely lovely on the entrance to the village. And where else do you build nice bungalows? Where do you build nice houses? If you come into East Street from March, on the right hand side as you come in, there's 4 or 5 really big houses, and they were built on fields, but they look absolutely lovely as you come in. And there is a natural boundary here because the road drops away, and I'm sure it will fall into flood zone 3 at some point. And you've also got the railway line. And how far is too far? I supported the previous two, and I look at these and I'll support these today. But that is it. I will not go any further than that. That is the land drops away. I think we'll be falling into flood zone 3. I'm no technical expert, but just looking at it, it drops quite severely after these. Now, also, these are half of this development is within the 30-mile zone of Eastry, and the other half of it is well within the 40-mile zone. In Chatteris, we've got Kirk and Willie Terrace, which has got a 40-mile-an-hour zone there. There's building there. There's building all the way along Doddington Road, which is 40 miles an hour. So we're a district. Now, if we can build in one part of the district, why can't we build in the other? And yeah, I know what Councillor Sutton is saying about balancing up, but those bungalows that are built there look lovely. And these are nice big plots again. And this will add to the village as you drive in. And I think there is a natural boundary here where the land falls away. And I will support these today, but I would not support any more house building beyond here.
Yeah, very pertinent answers there, Councillor Benny. I do tend to agree with you really actually on that one. So we're still in debate, guys. Anything else before I bring officers in? No. Okay, debate is finished. Points of clarification. David, thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. I think the main points I would just draw members' attention to is effectively, as always, the policies of the local plan, which seeks to limit the kind of expansion of small villages such as Easttree into the open countryside to effectively retain that sort of agricultural character at the edges of the settlement. Clearly, members did go against officer recommendation previously for the two existing ones, but I think while each application needs to be considered on its own merits, Councillor Sutton's point about effectively where do you draw the line becomes quite a valid one, because you can sort of almost end up with a situation where you're playing kind of development poker. I'll see your two houses, raise you three. I'll see your extra one and raise you three. And before we've done, we're down at the drain. As I say, the whole thrust of the policy of the local plan, and indeed national planning policy, is to control the expansion of villages so that they don't encroach into the countryside to the detriment of the character and appearance of the countryside. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for summing that up, David. Right, so I'm looking for a proposer. So I've got Councillor Sutton smirking nicely in the background. So what is your proposal, Councillor Sutton?
It's an unbalanced decision. They are lovely. Councillor Benny is absolutely right. Those two bungalows are lovely going into the village, but I think this is just a step too far. So I will be supporting officer recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application. It's proposed by Councillor Sutton. Have we got a second for that? Councillor Murphy. So with that in mind, we'll go to the vote on that proposal. So those in favour of going with officer's recommendation to refuse that, please put their hands up. Thank you. All those against? 5. So that proposal has been defeated. So we're looking for another one. So who'd like to make a... Come on, don't argue, girls and boys. Councillor Benny. So what is your proposal, please, first?
My proposal would be we go against officer's recommendation. I'll give you my reasons in a minute for this. Usual conditions to be applied by David and the team. LP3, I think this is within the town boundary because it's within the 30-mile-an-hour zone and the 40-mile-an-hour zone. LP12. The site is adjacent to our existing development footprint of the village, except for the village listed on the hierarchy being small, where infill. Yeah, it doesn't completely comply with that, but I think the benefit of having these nice bungalows put there, because we need these bungalows. We need good quality housing. Not everybody wants to live on an estate. Not everybody wants to live in a 2 up, 2 down. And this is what drives an economy. We build bigger houses. Somebody moves out of a smaller house into a bigger house that frees up a house for somebody else. And it filters down to where we're providing starter homes from this method. So I think that the benefits of this development will certainly outweigh the detriment this will do in terms of building out into the open countryside. Yeah, I'm coming to them, Mrs. French. It would not have an adverse effect on the character or appearance of the surrounding countryside and farmland. We have acres of farmland. There is country stewardship schemes friend of mine has a 1,500 acre farm and he has 22 acres of margins and land he gets paid stewardship for. We take acres and acres and acres of land out of development, out of food production, because we have too much of it in this country. That may change in the future when Ukraine can't supply the grain we need, but at the moment, that is fact, that is happening. So we take land out of development. So I don't see that that is a problem on that one. The proposal is of a scale and in a location that is in keeping with the core shape and form of the settlement and will not adversely adversely harm its character and appearance. Well, this is extending that very nice entrance into the village that I spoke about before when we built those other two. I really think that those two that were built are two of the nicest bungalows I've seen passed by this planning committee in my time in Fenland District Council. And I hope that these two are built to the same high standard that the other ones are. And B16, see anything. Retains and incorporates the natural historic features such as trees, but the hedgerow is being retained in this site. So that I don't see why that is even in there. And it makes a positive contribution to the local distinctiveness and character of the area, enhances its local setting, responds to and improves the character of the local built environment, drives resilience to climate change. How do you quantify that one? Reinforces local identity, and that improves the identity of the place by having nice houses on the way in. So I think it does that, and it certainly doesn't adversely impact on the entrance. I think this is again bringing really nice houses, and that sets the tone. But when you drive into any village or town, that's where people form their opinion of that town or village that they drive into. And I feel that this will enhance, not take away from history.
Yeah, well, I'm happy with those proposals, and I absolutely feel the same as you. When you drive into a village, you drive into Doddington, Wiblington, or Eastry or Coates. One wants to see nice houses when they go through it. It does make it so much better. You think it actually puts a spring in your step when you go through these places. So that's good. So have I got a seconder for that, Councillor French? Yes. Okay. So we've got a proposer to go against officer recommendation to approve this application by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French. Now we'll go to vote on that proposal. So all those in favour of that, please show hands.
Six votes, Chair.
Those against?
2 votes, Chair.
That application has been approved. Thank you very much. So all that leaves me to do is thank you very much for attending, councillors. This concludes today's business, and I declare this meeting closed at 20 to 4. Thank you very much. Thank you.